Good morning and welcome to BeefLink TV, your daily dose of industry information. This morning I'm joined by Robert Windsor with 3 key updates that we've recently shared with our members.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
No problem at all, Natalie.
Shall we start off with the Montreal Convention?
Yeah, Montreal Convention, it's actually the main convention governing air freight movements. And it gets reviewed periodically. If I remember correctly, it's every 5 years. It's an unusual convention in a way because it covers both passengers and cargo. And basically, there is going to be an increase in limit of liability, which is defined in Article 22, Paragraph 3, MC99. Very boring, but that's where it is if you want to look it up. And basically, the limit of liability on what a carrier has to pay out on a consignment if it's lost, damaged, that sort of stuff, has increased from 22 SDRs per kilo to 26 SDRs a kilo. Now, a lot of people ask me, what is an SDR? Basically, it's called a standard drawing rate, and it is, if you like, a basket of currencies loosely based upon the US dollar. It's widely used in insurance terms, and, you know, it reflects a balanced basket of currencies. And one of the reasons we use SDRs is because it doesn't fluctuate as much as, you know, a pound might against the dollar or the dollar against the euro or something like that. So that's that. Just so members are aware, one SDR was valued at US dollars 1.33038 on the 25th of October. I haven't got what the pound is, but what we do, and this will be from January BeefLink, we will be publishing, and it's usually on page 8 or 9 if I remember, the limits of liability per convention.
Sure.
So that's important. So what do you need to do? Well, basically, you've got to think about, you know, does this get referred to anywhere in your documentation? So you've got to take note of the new liability limits of liability. If you've got any contracts, for instance, where you say, I am going to be settling under Montreal, you'll have to consider these new terms. And probably most importantly is you need to tell your insurers.
Sure.
What it has done is increased the limits of liability between an air freight moved where the master bill defines the limit of liability between parties, and a house bill, which will be usually concluded under BEFA terms, which is 2 SDRs a kilo. People say, why is it 2 SDRs? It's very simple. 2 SDRs per kilo is the limit of liability as defined under the Maritime Convention, which is Hague-Bisbee.
Sure.
Anybody got any questions? Send me an email, r.windsor@befa.org, and we'll try and help you.
Great, thank you. Are there any other further updates we want to advise our members of?
Yes, I've got 2. The increased security requirements regarding America in particular has caused a lot of problems. And we had 3 inquiries last week, and I think it's important to highlight these. In our announcement, which we based very much upon the announcement which came from FIATA, so we thank them for providing that. There are 4 parts. Data elements and the established business relationship. And I'm going to focus on those 2 because the other is quite clear.
Sure.
The data elements have been long expected, and this relates to the electronic filing of a safety and security declaration to the American authorities. We call it the ACAS declaration.
Okay.
And, you know, that is long-term, long expected. We don't think some of the data elements are particularly possible to find, but, you know, we're working with both ClayCat and FIATA to try and resolve those problems. The second one, and this is important, the established business relationship or known consignor requirement, that is part of what's referred to as the emergency measures,
Right.
or the additional emergency measures. I can't remember the exact phrase. And this is where you have to have a document from the forwarder confirming to the airline that the clients that are being handled under this airway bill, because it's an air freight shipment, actually are compliant with the regulation. And I think people have to differentiate that in their own mind and be very, very clear. It is not an easy piece of legislation to follow, if you like. And certainly one of the problems has been that it keeps changing.
Right.
And we keep people up to date. Once again, people have got questions, give us a shout. We're quite happy to help. Obviously, that's what we're paid to do, if you like. There's the last announcement that we referred to actually help the forwarder, because it allows for what's called a contractual arrangement. So that doesn't mean to say it has to be with the shipper in the UK, so long as they have an arrangement with the party established in the United States who's going to cover this. Now, one thing I will emphasise is no airline has actually changed the document. It's called an EBR that has to be completed. And in many ways, people have to speak to the carrier,
right,
because it's their final decision whether or not they are going to enhance this, make use of this slightly more relaxed system. Carriers are obviously wary of this, because obviously if something goes wrong, the United States government is going to be looking to the carrier to explain why it's gone wrong.
Sure.
And so that's important.
Sure. And we have one final update, don't we, for our members?
Yes. If you like, it's almost like a tail end of EU exit. And it is the implementation of the Safety and Security Declaration from the 31st of December. Now, we've had a lot of discussions with government on this, and one of our main criticisms is that it's a one-size-fits-all approach. One of the issues we've got is that RoRo has not been understood in government circles. It is a fragmented industry. It's got things in it, systems which are not prevalent in either air or maritime, and basically it hasn't been fully understood. It was to do with EU exit. It was in the BTOM, and we've always said this would be the most difficult part to implement. We're actively working on behalf of members to see how it works. I mean, the odd thing is it's actually the carrier's responsibility. Now, that means in unaccompanied, so that's mainly Hooker Holland to Harwich or Felixstowe, the ferry operator will have to do this declaration.
Right.
On what we call short straits, so that's mainly Dover, Calais and those sorts of routes. It is the haulier, as operator of the active means of transport, who's liable. But, the hauliers just haven't got the capability. Will the forwarder do it? I believe customs agent. There's no legal obligation on them to do it, but I suspect commercial pressure may lead to a situation where more consider it.
Sure.
We have actually put guidance out about this, or how it can be accessed. Unfortunately, the demise of the single trade window hasn't helped, because that would have been a very cheap web-based system to access this system. And that has been paused, to use the official government phrase, for at least a year or two.
Sure.
So that's no help at all.
Thank you very much, Robert, for your updates.
Thank you very much indeed.
The updates that Robert has talked us through today will be linked in the description below. That's all for today's episode of BeefLink TV, your daily dose of industry information.